Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, February 4th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. How about that cold start, guys? You didn't expect that, did you? You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are joined by a very special guest and friend today. This quick story about how we all know the internet kind of sucks most of the time. But how I met this guy was really like that. This is the good part of the internet. Okay, so I was at Lincoln Financial Field at a Taylor Swift concert with my wife and daughter, and there was a vicious lightning storm going on. It was outdoors, vicious lightning storm. So it kept, and we had just watched Ed Sheeran play, and I was blown away because I honestly didn't know Ed Sheeran, and I was like, wow, that guy's freaking amazing. And so I tweeted that out.
Isn't that Ed Sheeran in the background, Ron?
Yeah, in the background of where?
You, like it's sitting on the couch there. Isn't that Ed
Sheeran? That's close. I'm sorry. Gotcha. All right. No, so I put out on Twitter or I put on Instagram, a picture of me in the stadium, and we're waiting to get Taylor to go on. And I get a response on Instagram from saying, we're ready to go whenever they are. And I'm like, who the heck's that? And it turns out that, Dave, who is the musical director for Taylor Swift and keyboardist for Taylor Swift on the tour, was following me on Instagram. And since then, got a chance to get to know him, an incredible Blue Jackets fan. Had him down to Philly to watch a Blue Jackets game down here. Had a couple dinners with you when you came through town with Taylor. And it's just wonderful to have you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's what a random way to meet up, I guess. But yeah, and I'd actually forgotten all about the storm aspect of that. But yeah, it's totally good.
Yep. Yeah, it was great. We kept going back and forth, and I'm like, "You guys ready?" And I had the inside scoop for the whole, section. They're like, "Yeah, they're going to be out in 10 minutes. It's going to be."
We should talk about that for a minute, though, because the whole Storm summer concert series is always reeks with a little bit of failure like that. There's always some shows that there's nothing you could do about the weather. I went and saw a show. It was at Great Adventure. It was Asia and Yes, and so Asia came on first. No problems, right? They played their whole show. That's fine. Even a couple of members of Yes played with them. Fine, right? In between the break, then all of a sudden, you start getting a little bit of the bad weather. And then they're like, okay, they come on, they play a couple songs, and they're like, no, it's delayed. We don't know when we're coming back, right? So now we're all stuck at Great Adventure. We're like walking around. And 2 hours later, they came back on. They played like 2 shows, and they're like, yeah, we have to go. It's insurance matters. And it's like, I get that is real life. But it's hard to sell that to the fans, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of rules that are usually out of the artist's hands as far as curfew and union regulations and how late people can work and whatever. So I've heard of a ton of stories like that. Fortunately, anything that I've been a part of, we've managed to squeeze it in. We may have to to take a couple songs out of the set list just to shorten the set list for 10 minutes or so we don't go into some overtime situation. But I mean, it's sort of like going to a baseball game and having a rain delay and just having to figure out if you want to ride it out or not. A lot of people leave, a lot of people stay.
Dave, there was a rather infamous show in Buffalo a few years back. The Tragically Hip played in Buffalo, and they were they always sold out like they sold out in Canada in Buffalo because Buffalo is essentially a Canadian town. Sure. And about an hour into the show, or maybe less, a horrific rainstorm happened. They had to shut that. They tried to play through it. They had to shut down. They ended up coming back months later, basically opening up for another band because the band had a slot. That was when they were supposed to play, and they played their entire set over again for free for the people who had tickets for the previous show. Now there are also shows that I wish would have been rained out, like Van Hagar with Vince Neil. It would have been merciful if I would have been hit by lightning.
There you go.
A lot of us would have wished for that, Mike.
Oh man. But so why we have Dave on today is because I love I get Blue Jackets text from Dave, at the funniest times of like just the crack. I mean, this guy is now you were born out west, but you were raised in Columbus, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Columbus. Was there until my whole childhood until I went to college.
Wow. Okay. So where'd you go to college?
University of Michigan.
Oh, that's right.
You're from Columbus and you went to Michigan.
So that's wow. That's the whole thing. I'm a fan of both both schools, both teams. It's all jacked up. The week that they play each other in football is like kind of the worst week of the year for me because everybody I know is calling me and talking smack. Whether it's my parents or my buddies from college. So, both my parents went to Ohio State.
You picked like the two.
They both went to Ohio State?
Yeah.
You picked the two biggest stadiums in college football too. Like
pretty much, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess Penn State and Tennessee.
Yeah, Penn State's close.
But yeah. But
I love the concept of your parents writing checks to the University of Michigan.
Yeah. 100%. But it wasn't until I went there that I got into hockey. Like growing up in Columbus in the 80s, it was something that was on ESPN like sort of at the end of Sports Center every day.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't until I went to Michigan, and that was right when the Red Wings were really turning the corner with the Russian Five and with Steve Yzerman, Chris Osgood, and all those guys. And then the Michigan program with Red Berenson was so strong then, and like that was the game to go to, like more than
Dave, you were probably in Michigan. I just wrote a book about it a year ago on college hockey and interviewed Turco and Brendan Morrison for the forward. You were probably seeing them play.
It was that era. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'll get you the book then because you'll love it. That's all they talked about. They love that whole era.
Yeah, and college hockey is phenomenal. Like people, like my wife's a Cornell grad, and she just talks about the hardest ticket to get, by far at Cornell.
Yeah, she's in love with Joe Newendike.
She was hit on by Kent Manderville. How about that? There you go. She went to school with Kent Manderville.
I don't have pleasant memories about him. I remember when he got deked out of his jock by Gretzky in Game 7.
Well, he failed both in your Toronto and my Philly, Kent Manderville.
He was a good penalty killer. Give him that.
He was fast. He was very fast. But yeah, I want to talk Jackets because there's so much going on, David. I'm like, this is just, it's funny because Yarmo the other day, I'm Facebook friends with Yarmo, and he puts out the picture of the new jerseys, which I want to ask you about. Oh. But he puts out the picture of the new jerseys and then says, big night tonight, and he was just all fired up. And obviously, what are your thoughts on? First of all, let's start with the trade because that's got to be the biggest news. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I feel like he couldn't have done any better. Than given the situation he was in. Everybody knew that PLD wanted out. So
yeah, right.
But, you could say that sort of devalues him a little bit if you have to make a trade. But so I was psyched to get Line and to get Roslovic too was even better. Columbus kid coming back. So and it's just such a weird year. Right, like across the board with no fans. With the games I've watched so far, like seems like sometimes it just takes a minute to get some energy going. Yeah, it does. So it's hard to say how this is all going to turn out. But I think under the circumstances, Yarmo just could not have done any better.
I think he hit it out of the park. To be honest, I'm a big Line guy. I really am. I think he's a great player, and I think that Yarmo may be able to convince him to stay there. I mean, a lot of people don't think they can, but if anybody can,
they bought him a billboard. That's a good start.
The Finnish GM, if anybody can, it's Yarmo, right? I mean, if anybody can actually convince him to stay there, it would be him. I mean, I wanted to go back a little bit further actually for a second because it just occurred to me. So you're a hockey fan, going to the University of Michigan, you move to New York, you do music, and what happens when you are told out of the blue, hey, Columbus is getting an NHL team?
Well, so. At Michigan, that's where I got into hockey, and I became a Red Wings fan. Just watching all the games. And then as soon as I knew Columbus was getting franchised, I just completely dropped the ring. Okay, and now I'm all in with the Jackets. I mean, growing up as a huge sports fan in Columbus, there's Ohio State, and then there's Cleveland, Cincinnati. There's nothing in Columbus. We got the Crew, which was nice. But we got the Jackets, and okay, well then this is my team, and I'm just all in with them. And then for 10 years, 12 years, they just horrifically sucked night in and night out. And then they had one good year, and you thought they were turning the corner a little bit, and then they went back to sucking. So yeah, I mean it's been and being maybe the only Blue Jackets fan in the New York City area.
So I'm probably one of the few in the music industry.
I would think you'd be the only one, yeah.
Like in the music industry, I've met a lot. There are a ton of hockey fans, as you know, but they're not. You probably have never found, and I'm sure it's a great discussion you've had when you meet somebody. Oh, I'm a Kings fan. I'm a Predators fan or whatever. You must get some great moments.
Conversation starter.
and then to make it worse, Dave, the fact that the poster child for your team, Rick Nash, gets traded to the Rangers.
Yes. Demanded the trade. Yeah,
that's fair. He did.
That's the other thing about the PLD situation. It was and that was set up to be such a great cornerstone of the franchise. They drafted him early. Like everybody loved the way that he played. Like the style that he plays in is very Western and Columbus, and like the fans there love him. And then for it to turn on a dime and for him to be add him to the list of people that wanted out of town. That's just
Well, let me ask you this, Dave.
I know.
As a fan, you know that there's a good chance when you have some of these really good young players that you've drafted that they're not all going to stay based on finances. When do you get annoyed as a fan and say, you know what, sometimes you do have to pay top dollar for a guy because they rarely pay top dollar for a guy?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that's how it's ended up. I know that they have tried to sign several of the guys and thrown all the money in the world at him. And Dave just wanted to play elsewhere. So
I mean, they weren't shy about going after Panarin. I mean, they went hard after Panarin.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it, but I think it was just so strange how it went. Like everything was going along okay in the negotiation, and then this thing happened that I haven't really been able to hear much about what that actually was, but
it's frustrating. But I think so. One of the things I think that they need, and I think this is what Patrick Laine could do, is they need a hip player to play there. Like like a player with high profile like him, a player who is he's a good guy to like when he talks, he's got a good personality. He's not shy to like throw his opinions out there at all, which is cool. A lot of people worry how that's going to work with the coach, but I think Tortorella is misjudged in the situation. I mean, I think that helps.
Wait. Well, if we're going to whitewash here, I'm going to turn off my camera.
Yeah.
No, because you guys know that I differ with you on Torts. But
I want David's point of view on this. What I've been saying is, and I hope you're right for Columbus because I think it's a good hockey town, but the legacy is established. Nash, Jeff Carter, Panarin, Bobrovsky. Matt, you can't.
They're all. This is the thing. This is the thing you're missing. They're all unique circumstances in and of themselves. I mean, they really. And you can sit there and say. I mean, but let if you want to go through one by a time, each of them. It's not like they're all the same. They're all the same reasons. They're all very.
They have one common theme. They didn't want to be in Columbus.
No, really didn't have to do. Really had more to do with them wanting to be other places than not wanting to be in Columbus. I know it's kind of weird to say. No, but I'm serious. You're talking about specific egos here. Jeff Carter, who I know well, is a perfect example.
All right, let's take Jeff Carter off the table. He's a jerk.
Yeah, he's a jerk, and he's an example of like Panarin growing up, wanting to be a Ranger. He's like, this is what he wanted to do. This is what he wanted to do. So it's like.
The common theme was that they all wanted to be someplace other than Columbus.
I'm going to ask you this basic question, and David, you could follow with that. Do you believe that they will re-sign Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, that both of these guys will get new contracts in Columbus?
Honestly, the Seth Jones thing scares me. I think, like Aaron Portzline, the great reporter, The Athletic, has said that is a wellness check on the franchise, and I totally agree. I mean, obviously they're going to bend over backwards to keep him, but if he doesn't want to be there, that's just another.
Yeah, just another one of those circumstances. And it's a great city. I like going there. Yeah. The rink is great. The cannon makes me laugh. But at the end of the day, guys aren't staying. That is a problem.
Big guys aren't staying, but there's players who love it there.
Big guys make you win.
There's players who absolutely love it there. And the guys you're talking about that aren't staying, they wouldn't be staying in other cities too, though. That's the thing you're missing. You're talking about guys who have very specific places they want to play. Right. That's why this is different. They wouldn't be staying in other places as well. They wouldn't be staying.
Well, all right, I'm going to play devil's advocate. How many players leave Philly and New York as an example because they don't want to play there. There's someplace else they want to play. Usually they stay because they get paid top dollar and they like it there. It's usually both.
Well, there's quite a few that do leave, and they're not big stories always, but they're not the most important
players. Big players.
I like workmen like guys like Boone Jenner.
Yeah, sure.
Foligno, but you can't build a Stanley Cup winner with your cornerstones being Boone Jenner and Nick Foligno. You need Dubois. You need Joe Werenski. Those are the guys that you need. And unless you can convince them to stay, I think they're going to be sort of a turnstile franchise. And honestly, before the trade was made, I said Laine was not a cornerstone. He was a complimentary player. And if you pay him $9 million to stay in Columbus, I'm sorry, you're going down the wrong.
There's out there, Mike.
David Jones, eat me.
No, it's true. And honestly, here's the thing. Like, let's get beyond staying or leaving in Columbus and get to the team right now, because to me that's way more interesting, because that other stuff is out of your control, right? And you're right. It's frustrating and it is nerve wracking. But I think the kind of guy Seth Jones is, and from every indication that I've gotten talking to people around that organization, he likes it there, and so does Werenski. They both like it there. So, I think they're not impossible. You're not talking about guys who have to play someplace else, who want to play someplace else. I mean, Seth Jones has already played in Nashville. He's already played someplace else. He knows what other places are like. Columbus is a hell of a place to live, guys. I mean, you guys know that I'm not
disagreeing with that.
I know Bill Zito, and he, when I would talk to him about it, he would say, this is just a great place. It's a hard place to leave. It's a hard place for his family to leave. Going to Miami to be the GM is a great deal, but it was a tough place for him to leave. I visited him.
Different. He's an assistant GM behind Yarmo, who's not losing his job anytime soon. That's a completely.
Oh, he had to leave. No, for his business, he had to leave, right? Yeah. He had to leave. But at the same time, he's like, listen, my wife, my kids, they don't want to leave. I mean, I know Zito's wife is friends with your wife, Dave's, and stuff like that.
And our kid, we have a daughter, and she plays with the twins, Zito's kids all the time. They get along great. Yeah, and everything you're saying is true. He loved it there.
He did.
And Michael Scott had the same problem, but Michael Scott left. So,
all right. Let's move on to the regular team, the team that's going on right now. Because first of all, I want to start in goal because, Korpisalo is having a hell of a year, even though they're struggling. Like he looks really strong. Do you agree, Dave?
I mean, I don't skate, right? I've never played the game. I don't know. I'm just a spectator, a fan.
Right.
I feel like it's kind of obvious that Elvis looks better than just as a goalie.
Okay, in general.
I trust towards of course it's great this year to have the rotation with so many games happening. So it's such a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's huge.
But Corby got left out to dry the other night against Dallas. That wasn't none of that was his fault.
Dallas is really good too. People have to realize how good Dallas is. Really
everybody sleeps on them. I know. When they're making a list of the teams in the conference.
We all do sleep on them to some degree. That's fair.
Because they're so isolated in a way. I mean, they're the only team that has to. First of all, the only team that has to fly to every game they play. Right? They're in the middle of nowhere. They really are, and it's that is an incredible thing. They really are.
I agree that Elvis has the higher upside. The only problem is, Dave, like the other night, he melted down pretty good, and when you do that with Torts, then you lose a few starts.
He gave up the game the other day, but on the other hand, the Jackets only scored one goal. It's like if he had a really good game other than those two terrible turnovers, so still could have won 3-2 or 4-2 if they could score some, but they're having trouble with that right now as usual.
I mean, I'm probably to blame, Dave, because I picked them to win the division. And I just, so to start off, that's a bad thing probably for them because I did. I mean, I did, and I picked them to win the division with real intentions. Real reasons. I mean, watching them play in the bubble, they were the team that came closest to beating the Tampa Bay Lightning. Honestly, they were.
I did see one troubling thing in the Laine audition in his first game. Not that he didn't shoot a lot. There was a point where he went to shoot, and he wasn't really fully ready to shoot. And this is Patrick Laine, and I think there's still some things going on up there that have to get laser focused. And
for sure.
I thought the most troubling thing was that I thought I was watching the Washington Capitals when I watched.
Let's address that for a second.
Because those jerseys.
They are the Blue Jackets, as I think someone said that.
It's not. I feel like it's not the best, and it's not the worst. It's like there's nothing to go back to for the
Right.
that team, other than that first terrible logo. So like, I think it's middle of the pack. I went and bought one anyways, just because.
I mean, no, if you're I love having the jersey. I have every Flyers jersey that's ever been made, so I'm with you.
Which player did you buy?
What players on the back of your jersey?
What player?
Oh, me? No, just a blank one.
You got a blank. See, I'm with you. I get a blank too these days. It's
Agreed.
like, you know what?
See, to me, my favorite Flyers third jersey is the one I have on Beaker Rack there, which is the one from the that's the one from the outdoor game versus Penguins. I thought those were really hip looking, and I hated the old like 3D one that we talked about a couple times, and I hated the Flyers in black because the Flyers are orange. They are the orange team in the NHL. There's no point in them being black.
And I said clearly the worst jersey of the worst of the reverse retro jerseys so far has been the Maple Leafs third jersey, because you can't if you're sitting in the third row next to the glass, you couldn't read the back of the jersey because
I can't wait for them to wear them again, because they're gonna.
It was horrendous last night at the game. Russ and I sit low, where they have the press really low. It was great at the game last night. The Flyers wearing their retro reverse jerseys or whatever. And I think now we've officially seen every possible color combination we can with the Flyers, like from orange, black.
Unless they introduce a new color, you're right.
I mean, unless they do like a black logo on a black shirt with black numbers, where that's the only thing we haven't seen anything. So, which would be really awful. But you're right, Mike. Like last night, I'm only 10 rows off the ice, and I can't pick out the numbers of the players either. And I'm just losing my mind. I'm like, this is insane. There's a reason that we have these reverse retros in general. I'm like more against the ones I've seen than I am for them. Like, I don't know why, but it just.
But you see, they're not making them for the media, X. So people are going to say, "Who cares, media? You don't."
You're right. These jerseys are made because they look really good hanging up in a store.
Right.
Correct.
I feel like I've seen about 5 that I really like. Like I really like the Hartford one.
Yeah, well, that's
Winnipeg. I like the gray that they.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a bunch of like okay ones, and then there's a couple that are just terrible.
I thought the Minnesota Wild using the North Stars colors was good.
Cool. Yeah.
I thought the LA Kings using the purple and gold was good.
Yeah.
But most of the other ones I just thought were, like
that Edmonton one, which looks like a Miami Dolphins jersey to me, is like really bad.
And the Islanders one, right? The Islander where it's just the Islanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't do anything.
They really didn't do anything to it at all. Yeah. I agree.
The Buffalo Sabres one, which was the cross swords was originally red, black, and white. They used it in the blue and gold colors. And I was walking through a sporting goods store in Buffalo a couple weeks ago, and not one of those friggin' things was sold. There was a complete rack, and everybody was walking past it to go buy the regular jersey.
I mean, it did remind me.
They're 50 off, Mike. That's when they'll be.
It did remind me a lot of the Capitals, though, watching that game, and that's the first thing that struck me, because that kind of red and white and blue combination is just so ingrained in me of like Mike Ridley, like
Mike Ridley, wow,
like or Pete Peters, like
Pavanka. There you go.
Yeah, like the many great Flyers Capital series from like Dale Hunter, that era, like that's the
there you go.
Yeah, so but I'm a little bit older. So anyway, that's kind of crazy. But okay, so the goaltending, I do agree with you. I'm with you on that. Both those guys. I think having a duo like that gets you 2/3 of the playoffs almost, like to me. Especially
I wouldn't say that this year. They haven't been as sharp as they were last year.
That division is pretty weak. Like I think of all the divisions, I was talking to somebody about this last night. I think is the weakest division. I still think, obviously it's Tampa's division, right? It's Tampa and everybody else. Right now, at least that's what it is. I'm in Florida, off to a great start, but they've played really literally nobody yet.
6 games.
Except for Columbus. When they played Columbus when they were absolutely down. So,
but remember the dynamic with the Blue Jackets last year. They had that ton of injuries throughout the year, and we were all marveling at the job that Tortorella did, because you had all these guys like was it Eric Robinson and Nathan Gerby coming up and playing well, and them winning, playing stifling defense and just getting enough goals, and then they continued that into the playoffs. This year, I don't get that feeling, David. I think that, maybe they're relying too much on the young guys that like Foodie, who came up in the playoffs, and they expect them to score goals. And I don't think they're playing as stifling a defense. And maybe after a while, playing that type of defense that Tortorella wants, you just can't play it because it's too demanding.
Yeah, I mean, they still have all the personnel there. It's like they're all their defensive pairs are as strong as as ever. But they have it, first of all, they haven't generated much offense from their defense so far. And yeah, maybe then when you're just depending on trying to get a shutout every game, when you don't have enough offense happening, then you're just gonna have more breakdowns, I guess. But I don't know. I think they have all the pieces there this year, and especially making the Laine trade, like addressing a big need of like having a dynamic scorer there. And they're just going to have to juggle some lines and see who works well together. I don't know who the center can be for Laine. I don't know exactly how the lines are going to shake out. It might take.
It may be Roslovic. They may try it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's Texier. I don't get.
No,
that.
it won't be Texier.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it could be. I mean, I really like Texier.
And I don't think Torts trusts Max Domi defensively up the middle to be able to put him with Laine, because that could be you could call them the minus line. Because
I'll tell you why it won't be Texier, Eck, because Roslovic will dig more for the puck. Yeah, Texier will, and Laine's not digging for all his own pucks. Somebody's going to have to get it to him. Yeah. But I won't let Mike rip Eric Robinson because he's from.
I'm not ripping him.
5 points in 11 games, Mike. This is a guy who I covered.
I'm not ripping him. I'm
urging all Columbus fans, go get his Princeton jersey. He was fun to watch there.
I'm not ripping the guy. I'm saying there was no expectations last year, and he performed well for them. So I'm actually complimenting him.
To me, as much as it's good to have a center with him, what I'm waiting for, and I've been saying this before, is to me, Laine is like your like T.O. Terrell Owens type wide receiver, right? If you're a football, he's that guy, and Jones and Werenski are like classic long game quarterbacks. Like I want to see that. Like I want to see those guys find Laine more. Like once they figure that out, once they figure out where Laine is going to hide and where he's going to be, that's when you're going to see Laine take off. I think because that is something Laine has never played in Winnipeg with any defenseman anywhere close to those two as far as their abilities to get people the puck. And that is where it could explode. That's what I'm really fired up
about. So what
Eck
is waiting for is for Laine to dance on the winged wheel in Detroit, right?
I'll tell you who the center for Laine will be. It just won't be this year. It'll be Liam Foudy. But, he's not quite there yet. But that'll be the guy. He'll be their top center.
I want to ask you about Foudy, Dave, because I was so impressed by that Foudy in the bubble. I was just like, that guy is just – he's ridiculous.
He's only played he hasn't played that many games.
He got sent down to taxi squad.
He's taxi squad now.
Yeah. I mean, he's struggled. Again, this is like why it's such a weird year. Like I don't ever think that much of the players needing the fans to pump them up. I feel like the game is so fast moving and so violent and so like on a razor's edge, anyways. That like once you're on the ice, you just are gonna be pumped up to play. But I feel like. They're without the edge of having the fans there. It's playing out in weird ways with some guys it makes them more comfortable. It takes some pressure off, and for other people, they don't really have it every night. And for one reason or another, Foudy, who looked so great in the bubble, looks like the game's a little much for him right now. For whatever.
Also, I think. I'm going to say it's a half and half thing with the coach that they have, only because a young player like Foudy, when you have speed like that and you have a little bit of physical ability, his defense isn't the strongest part of his game. So if he is being asked to play rock solid defense, it is going to be too much for him. And that's the problem with a lot of coaches, not just Torts. I mean, if you want to work in these young players, you have to live with some of that.
Right.
Something is not right now with Columbus when your three highest minuses are your three best players.
Right.
Jones is -10, Werenski's -9, and Cam Atkinson is -8. That tells you something's not right.
I mean, Atkinson's a good one to bring up too, Dave. He's like a tough one for sure. He's got all the freaking talent in the world, but I mean, what's going on? When you watch, what do you see?
I mean, he seems like he's leaving his heart out there on every shift.
Yeah.
But nothing's happening. No bounces are going his way. No. He's just like not around the puck the way that he has been in the past. I mean, and the same kind of thing happened last year. I think maybe some of that was like a lingering injury.
Yeah.
But like he just doesn't really have it right now, and I don't know how that comes back.
It's weird. I was thinking about that because it reminds me a little bit. He reminds me of Konechny a lot. Like I when I watched the two of them play, Atkinson and Konechny, I see a lot of similarities. And so Konechny last year, was the leading scorer for the Flyers. Didn't have a goal in the bubble, not at all. Like, and it was just, but he was working his tail off. But when
I got some breaking news for you, Jackets related.
Okay.
Here's the lines for tonight. I'm telling you. This Torts just literally threw it in a blender. He's got Domi, Laine, and Texier playing left wing. He's got Koivu, Foligno, and Jenner. He's got Nash, Bjorkstrand, and Grigorenko. He put Roslovic on the fourth line with Atkinson and Robinson. Like, what is he doing? I get Robinson being there. You can't put Atkinson and Roslovic on the fourth line.
Who's on the line with Laine?
You're not going to score. I'm putting you on the fourth line.
Who's on the line with Texier and Laine?
Domi.
Okay, so he's got Domi.
I like Domi and Laine. Both of them have something to prove, and both of them want to be successful together.
Well, you basically have like five people that can play center, right? Like in that the top four pairs. So somebody's like with Texier, Nash, Domi,
Roslovic.
Right. So somebody's going to be on the wing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those
Roslovic's not a 4C. He's not. He is not a 4C type player. He's a top 9 type.
My feeling on Roslovic, I talked to some people about Roslovic down there. My feeling on him is that he was hanging out in Columbus the entire time. He never was up. He never went to to Winnipeg.
Right.
Didn't necessarily think he was as in shape, and I'm wondering if they're trying to bring him in slowly by putting him on the fourth line and giving him some time to adjust.
Maybe, but you know what? They've got a 37-year-old Mikko Koivu playing second line
center.
Right, but why first of all, brilliant to have Mikko Koivu when you get Patrick Laine. I mean, there's no better. I mean, he is literally.
That's a good thing. No, I agree.
He's literally Laine looks up to him. Like he's a god. But Mikko Koivu is one of those guys. The Koivus, both of them, obviously, are just so.
But ask yourself the question, Ak. Why is Torts putting Mikko Koivu on second line center? Because he can trust him defensively.
Here's what I think. Yeah, you're right. But here's what I think he's doing. I think he is going back to the idea, and I think this is smart because I was noticing that I was kind of upset about the Jackets not doing this. Going back to the idea that we are a 4-line team. Mm-hmm. That this is a 4-line team lineup.
And I think he likes him with Jenner too, and Jenner has had some jump this year. So it makes sense for Jenner to play up a little higher in the rotation. But
I gotta say,
like I said, those lines will last for until mid period.
like 10 minutes in, maybe.
Third pairing's a little weak with Delzato and Kukan. That's a little weak.
Mm-hmm.
I have a thing about Delzato that lately I've figured out that a lot of the defensemen in the league, I'm going to now call them the Delzato factor. Well, Delzato is the problem with guys like Mete, Gostisbehere, and all these guys who are just they're basically Michael Delzatos, incredibly talented offensively, really not very strong, physically.
No, but he is strong physically, Delzato. That's the difference.
He is now, but the reason he's bounced around so much is this really one-way offensive defensemen that are failing right now in the NHL.
No, that's true one way, but Delzato hits everything that moves. That's why Torts likes him.
He's been great there, and
but he's not going to be able to play a whole season.
He is great. Wherever he goes, he's great for a month and a half.
The bottom pairing right now is leading the Blue Jackets in defensive scoring. Kukan and Delzato both have 4 points.
Yeah.
So,
I want to go back to something that
can't last.
Right. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, David, which I think is really interesting, and that is what playing without the fans is doing. And so I've been, when we're lucky, Russ and I, that we get to see these games, and Mike doesn't. We keep bringing that up every day. But that we get to go to these games live, and I talked about how there's definitely a level that's jumped from preseason until now. The first few games there was definitely a lack of skill, and now the older players are much more into it and they're much more there. However, there's also the opposite energy level of that the whole excitement of playing, just of having a season, is fading, and the lack of fans is in effect a thing, and when playing shows, sometimes you're not into it. The second you hear that crowd, it's hard not to be into it. I get that with some of the players right now that they need that crowd to get, they're looking for that and they come out there. And last night's game between the Bruins and the Flyers was god awful boring for 2 periods. Like it was one of the
for 2 periods it was bad. Once you left, it got really good.
I was feeling like crap last night, so I left it when it was 3-1 Flyers. I never leave early. I left 3-1 Flyers. They lose 4-3, but that's fine. But I was exhausted, and I've been up with my sick kid here, and I was driving home, and of course they lost on the way home, but the Big Bad Bruins and the Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies, threw like 4 checks between them for 2 periods. There's no. I mean, and I think it's a factor, Dave. I think as you go along here, it's going to get harder. It's going to get a lot harder to play without fans.
I think, and hearing a lot of the talk before the season started about how you're going to see these same teams over and over again. In the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, that there's going to be all this bad blood and teams are going to get so tired of each other and more fights and whatever. And so far, to me, it's been the opposite.
Yeah.
It hasn't really generated any of that. It's just sort of.
It may not be in that division, Dave, but there's been like 25, 28 fights. We counted them up yesterday. So in certain divisions, there are a lot of fights.
It's not even fights. It's more just the hitting and the anger and a little there's not much happening after whistles. Like that to me is a big sign. Like when hockey's exciting, stuff happens after whistles, and some of that can be fan driven. Like
the mission statement for the NHL this year is familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah,
because that's what's since you're going to be playing against teams 8 times a year when you normally play against them 4. Even when you're playing against them 4, you hate players on the other teams. It's going to be even worse now. I can't wait for Edmonton and Calgary to play each other because they're going to kill each other.
Yeah, that's a big one. We need that. They should have brought some of these big rivalries in a little bit earlier, I think, because right now, they're not seeing like the Flyers and Penguins. They played twice.
No, but they're trying to save them because they're hoping that they'll be close to being in the playoffs.
Right, and maybe that's why another reason it's so difficult to tell like how you're doing in the division, how you really are doing.
Which is a great idea, Russ. When now they're talking about points percentage and games not being made up. Okay, you're going to save the games that you thought were going to be the most attractive to later in the season when they may not be played because of COVID. That's brilliant.
The only thing, though, I agree with your assessment a lot about the start of the season. The only thing that I swerve from is, again, yesterday when I tweeted and said the Flyers are not going to be keeping Shane Gostisbehere on the top pairing much longer. He was off the top pairing by the 3rd period. Teams that have problems that started at the regular season, if it's a personnel issue, they're still going to be there, and they're going to be very hard to fix because it's going to be very hard to trade.
Trades are. I mean, that was another reason why the Line 8 trade was so impressive. That's another reason why. To make that trade in this season right now,
it was a perfect fit.
Actually. It was. I mean, he got. I mean, to get Roslovic almost as a throw-in, to me, that was astonishing. Like,
that was a great part of the trade.
And I heard that, and they kept money. I mean, and Winnipeg, it's like obviously, the Jets knew that there was no way in hell Line was returning, so they had to do it. More so than with PLD, they have him for 4 years. That matters to Winnipeg for sure. Well, and also the other thing I can't say enough about is Dubois' parents living in Winnipeg. That's a thing for a kid that age that matters. For the next 4 years, that's a big deal. I think it's a great.
It depends how good the mom's cooking is. If she's not a good cook, it's not that good of a thing. Because then you have to pretend you like it and eat it anyhow.
So the interesting thing with you, Dave, is like the rivalry thing is true, but then again, you're out of division. Like you're in another division right now.
Well, yeah, but a lot of it's back to what the Jackets were doing the first, 12 years, and including all these games against Nashville. I mean, that's like the franchise that I like.
Okay, right. Okay, so you're more used to this than the other division.
Yeah, and somehow, with all the work I've done down in Nashville, that's the building that I've been in the most, more than it, by 10 times more than any other.
Right.
And the goal song, the fans, the colors, the whole thing, just kind of, and the fact that they own the Jackets. I mean.
It is so funny, we talked about. We had the exact. This is like my favorite thing in the world: Nashville and the Predators, and the way they play down there. We have this exact opposite thing. That is so funny because it's like it just makes you sick. It makes my friend who's a St. Louis Blues fan feels the same way as you are. Like he goes there. So
I have a ton of respect for the the franchise, and like I know a couple of the guys on the team down there, and they're great. And like, you know, obviously it's a great city, and guys love to play there. It's just they beat the Jackets every game for like 12 years in a row or something. So
let me ask you about this. We were talking about Matt Duchene the other day, and he's got dreams of, you know, being a singer-songwriter, whatever, like a lot of people in Nashville, and he's not having a very good year there. That culture is pretty big there. It's basically the biggest culture they have. Do you think it gets in the way for some athletes because they're trying to burn it at both ends?
I don't know. I mean, I think specifically, I know him a little bit. He's a really good dude.
He's a great guy.
I don't think that he has any designs on, like, you know, being an artist. I think he just likes being in the, you know, being in the scene down there. Okay. But you know, it's a place that hockey players want to be. It's the same as New York or Chicago or Miami or, you know, wherever. But I mean, the fact that all these guys are just hockey players, right? Like they I feel like in general they just put their heads down and go to work. No matter where they are. I think you see this a lot less in hockey than in other sports, right? Where the off-field thing gets in the way. So I mean, I hope he gets to, I don't know, it turns it around a little bit, or whatever you call it, or
just not against your team.
Just no, absolutely. And I've told him that. Take it easy. Take it easy against my Jackets. You know, like,
I mean, the thing about this for me, it brings all of like my loves together. Music and hockey in the same place. That to me is just like the most fun about it. And that, you know, to have that, to be in that area.
Chicken.
Yeah, but I love. I mean, there's nothing better to me than going to a morning skate, then walking out to Broadway and sitting down and watching some people play, you know, moving from place to place after the morning skate, getting ready for that. It's just there's a fun thing to do there. And it's all walking. You're just walking, and it's really kind of nice that way. You know, and the Preds have always been great to me. They're in a lot of trouble too, though. I mean, they definitely. I went on Predator Radio last night.
Their team is bad.
Paul McCann and they're finally they're bad, and they're finally, because this is what I wrote an article a couple days ago, Dave, about like the Predators fans need to be real hockey fans. Like they need to be angry, and they haven't shown it yet to me, you know. And I think that this is a real hockey city in my mind. It's proven that out. But it's like how are Columbus fans as far as the anger level goes? I mean, you're a New Yorker too, so obviously, like, you know the difference between like the Midwest hockey thing and the New York hockey thing.
Man, think of Jets fans, but now think about how it relates to Columbus. Right,
man. I feel like some of the stuff that's happened in Columbus, if it was in a bigger market, some of it would affect these players a lot more. Like the fact that the PLD stuff happened with no fans in the building, like that, he should feel lucky about that. And all the stuff that, you know, the stuff that happened with Johansson years ago and him, the way that he left. I think if that would have happened in New York, it's all anybody would have talked about for weeks. It was a barely a blip in Columbus, you know.
Yeah.
David, let me ask you a bone of contention between me and Ack, because a couple years ago when the Blue Jackets, what I thought was stupidly made the trades for Duchene and who was it, Russ, that's now with Carolina that they got from Ottawa.
I know it's
Ryan Dzingel.
Dzingel.
Right? Yeah, they got Dzingel and they got Duchene. Traded a whole bunch of future assets. They didn't trade Panarin and Bobrovsky at the deadline to recoup anything. They were going for it, and they got one round, and they finally won a first round series. And I know it's important for a franchise to sort of break that seal, but I never thought that the additions that they made at the deadline were going to get them to win a Stanley Cup. And if you're not going to win the Stanley Cup to make those moves, I think it's irresponsible. You know, because now I think they could use those future assets. But from a Columbus fan's point of view, were you in favor of them selling future assets to just make the playoffs and win a first round series?
So I feel like Jarmo did that not just to win the first round series. But I mean, you got to understand, like, Columbus fans generally are all Ohio State football fans, and they're used to winning every game. Right. So even for Blue Jackets fans to lose, you know, nearly half the games of the year is still kind of weird for all.
Yeah.
So let alone like not winning it all every year. But
I mean, Justin Fields lost this year. I mean, just saying.
Right. He lost 2 games total in his right.
Still 2.
With that year, I think for me, I loved that he just like pushed all the chips in and said like, I'm going for it. And I
liked it too. I thought they had to do that.
They brought Boston to 6 games, right? They were in that series. You win that series, and like maybe you go to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think Yarmo thought that they had an outside shot of winning the cup that year. So so why not? And I didn't really have a problem with it.
The epicness of beating that Lightning team in 4 games was worth
that way. Yeah.
I mean that's one of the most epic series in NHL history. It really is, and it's just one of those things that it can't be underplayed. That Lightning team was probably better than any team we've had in the last 25 years.
I mean, it might have fueled them to win the cup last year.
I think when you ask those players, they'll tell you flat out that it did. They'll say, getting spanked by Columbus, that taught us a lot, and then they almost blew it against Columbus again. And the reality was that was so freaking close. I mean, that first game, that like one of the first games in the bubble was that 5 overtime game. Yeah. I mean, what was that like?
80 saves or whatever.
Saves. I know. He was so If Columbus wins that was Tampa's whole franchise hanging in the balance in that overtime game. Because if Columbus comes out with that win, Tampa's not winning that series. No way. And it's just that really just changed everything. And that's why I think it's smart. I mean, I know that you, Mike, would rather have your 5th round draft pick than an actual goalie to go through the playoffs with. But I think that in reality that you have
I'm talking first
round
picks.
I know.
Well, and with this franchise, like what you were saying about all the people that want to leave, you just look at the number of people, and you left off Johansson and Adam Foote and a couple other people from that list. The window to win is so narrow. You can't get any big ticket free agents to come in. You have to either trade for them or draft them. So if there's a year where it looks like they might be able to make a run, I'm all for just like
and winning does help you get people too. Like if you win, it does help you get free agents. There's no question that people want to go to a winning team. If they think that like after they see what they did to the Lightning, there's no question that suddenly people look at the Blue Jackets a different way.
Heck, we should talk about the new coronavirus rules for the NHL.
Well, let me let Dave go because but I really appreciate Dave. Thanks so much, bud.
It's a pleasure.
Can we have you on again when something else happens, Blue Jacket?
Anytime.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Dave. Thanks.
Dave.
Bye now. Cool. That's Dave Cook, and that was so much fun, man. Jealous of
he's good. He knows his hockey.
Jealous of all his keyboards too. My gosh,
I
know a couple of the ones behind him. Like the one he had over here is the Prophet 5, which is like I wanted to talk about this.
He didn't have a Korg though. If he had a Korg,
I was going to say I was looking for a Korg.
I know.
He's not living in the 80s. So
listen, you roll it in, it's still got a great sound. I don't want to hear it.
That's some really good. Yeah, oh man, yeah. If you want to play Foreigner, anyway,
Live was Foreigner.
Nothing's wrong with Foreigner. That's what the Korg was made for, man. There's no question about that.
How about a Moog?
Yeah, he had a Moog too. He did. He had one back.
Moog is good. Yeah, Moog is good.
I have one of those too.
Buffalo. So there you go.
We do share the. I've joked around with him about the different keyboards. A couple ones.
But I mean, the keyboards on Long Way From Home at the beginning. Like, why is that bad, Ek?
Yeah, I mean, everyone. No, nothing wrong with that. That's very 80s, but yeah, nothing wrong with it. I mean, the Final Countdown.
Oh no, Foreigner's way better than the Final Countdown.
Wait, we're comparing Foreigner to Europe for Christ's sake.
I'm just saying, those are the Korg sounds, man. That's all good. No, he's a really great guy. I mean, he has been Taylor Swift's musical director for the last 4 tours. He is literally, he's right there with Taylor all the time. He's really a huge hockey fan, and just has some great stories. Before I met him, my favorite story was when I was down covering a Predators Vancouver game in the playoffs, and Taylor Swift was actually rehearsing in the arena down the Bridgestone Arena down there, and he was there too. And it's funny because I got them in a lot of trouble because it was the early days of Twitter, and I tweeted out, "Hey, yeah, Taylor Swift is rehearsing in the It was apparently a big secret that no one knew about, and that afternoon suddenly they were like." That was like one of my biggest retweeted things ever, and I had like all these Taylor Swift fans around. But He's phenomenal.
Not to spend too much time on this, but just
Yeah.
because I watched a lot of the game last night because there were no other games on, and I have to say, if the Philadelphia Flyers do not address their defensive issues, they will not go far in the playoffs.
No, they're not going to get past the second round.
Yeah,
They're not.
Yeah, no, there's I mean,
they have to make some sort of change.
It was a weird game because the funny thing I said to Russ right when I left. What did I say to you, Russ? Which is really ironic. I said that the fact the Flyers, besides the fact that I feel like hell, I know they're going to lose when I'm on the Schuylkill Expressway. I said that the fact that the Flyers are winning this game right now tells me that they're a playoff team because they're not playing well enough to be winning this game.
Right.
And
say that.
and I said that it's one of those things that you really get a sense of, that they're still, I mean, they didn't win the game, but they were still, it was an overtime game. They were still in the game.
But how many times do I have to count now games that they've lost leads in that led to either an overtime game or a loss?
Yeah.
Starting to mount on them now. Some of them they overcome and they win the game, but they can't hold a lead.
Yeah. No, they can't hold a lead. And this was a problem before. And I mean, listen, I was going to tell, when we had Anthony on the other day, I'm a little bit tired of the whole this is all because we lost Niskanen thing. Like, it's like
you can't be tired of it because the GM brought it up again the other day. He goes,
"Hey, that's what the issue is." And that's the problem is that, Russ. The problem is everyone's sitting there saying, "If we had Niskanen, no." This is not.
I don't know if the players are, but we are because it's apparent.
But no, if the GM brings it up, the players, that's like one step away from the players. And to me, I don't think it is obvious that they'd be better with Niskanen. But they would still have the problems they have right now. Okay, this is not. They still wouldn't be able to.
No, they wouldn't have all of them. No way.
Not all of them, but they still have a lot of them. He's not. He wasn't a Norris Trophy candidate right now.
No, I mean, but he allowed Provorov. First of all, he allowed Provorov to step up more offensively because he was back there defensively. Plus, he was a big penalty killer, and they really don't have somebody to fill that role. So
no, they don't. And I'm not saying they should have replaced him. They should have. And I actually would have taken a flyer, no pun intended, on Braden Coburn today, just because I would have brought.
They don't have the money.
And apparently they don't have the money, obviously, or else they would have. So they're in a spot, right? They're definitely in a spot where they have to find, and I don't know who they have else in the system that might be just a stay-at-home defenseman, but they need to
stay at home. They have guys like Zamula, who I think is great, but he's not a stay-at-home.
They really have drafted too many offensive defensemen.
Yeah.
They're loaded with that. They need to make a trade for a stay-at-home defenseman.
I mean, Adam Yinning is in their system. He'll be a stay-at-home, but he's overseas right now. Right. And he's not ready anyhow.
Yeah,
they're gonna have to find a rental at the deadline who a team can retain salary to fit him under the cap. That's gonna be the solution. But until then, I think they're gonna sort of they'll have good stretches, they'll have bad stretches, they'll be better when Couturier comes back. But I think
that's the other thing we have to remember. Like they are missing Couturier, who is not a small player.
He'll address 25% of that. He will.
Yeah.
And he'll band-aid 25% of it, but it's still going to be there, the problem.
Who is also very good defensively. Couturier, he's also a guy who's out there when you're killing leads, right? So when you're trying to fill it up. So to me, that's, Mete would be the worst idea ever for the Flyers. Mete is another Gustafsson, another Gostisbehere. I mean, Mete, I really do like, and I think that
he's got ability.
I would not, if I was, Montreal needs to think long and hard before they trade that kid, because even though he's struggling right now like crazy, he is really young. He's a defenseman. It takes a while for a defenseman to come around. Mete could be a force still. I'm not.
The other thing because Russ has to go in a few minutes here.
Yeah.
The NHL announced four things regarding COVID protocols. Yeah. There's already been a little bit of pushback. If you see the statements of Andrew Kopp from the Winnipeg Jets regarding the fact that, these players, they're now limited to coming to the arena a little less than 2 hours before the beginning of the game. And he's like, the only place we can really go, other than home or or practice is the arena. And now we can't even do that.
Well, this is the world. I mean, it's like, I'm sorry for Andrew Kopp, but this is the world that we all live in. I mean, it's no different than anybody else, other than if somebody's going to work and risking getting COVID. That's the only difference.
I heard something else that was kind of crazy, and check this out. This is really interesting. And I don't know what this is. Like I say, there's a lot of strange things that come out. I talked to some people at the NHL that are part of like the contingency type situations. They're like always like there are many different contingencies, like the one we talked about before about playing outdoor games at times and things like that. There's two that are really interesting right now. I'm going to write about them tomorrow, but I'll kind of tease them here. That the NHL is thinking about. A couple of these things have come true in the past, as you guys know, for fruition. They've come to be passed, and they've surprised everybody. But here's one of them. Mm-hmm. One of them is that the NHL wants teams to get to 40 games, and then might allow that to be the limit. Like they might find a way that if you've got,
they say once you hit this bar,
once you hit 40 games, you're done. That's something I've heard.
Done, but you've qualified.
But they might actually say you're done. Like they might actually, if they get to the point where it depends where teams are towards the end of the season, but there's going to be a number. I was told that like in the last 2 weeks of the season or something, or last month.
They all hit 50, then they might fold a 10 and say,
right. Yeah. You've all played the same amount of games. Let's get everybody to the same amount of games. Even if it means teams playing a couple teams.
Here's something that's potentially unfair in this current construct. Right now, there hasn't been one positive of any player in the North Division. It's running rampant in the East, and it's running rampant in the Central, and less so in the West. You could have conceivably, you could have teams in the East playing, say, 45 to 50 games, and the same thing for the Central, and the teams in the North playing all 56. And okay, how is that fair? Because when you're playing all those games, you're incurring more injuries, more wear and tear, and the other teams, they're not going to play as much, and they're going to get.
That's why I think, Mike, that they might call it at some point. They might say to the North, like they might rearrange the scheduling a little bit and say, okay, let's try to get this, like change things around so they can get teams to play an even amount of games against each other. There's all kinds of things that could still happen, obviously.
But I brought this up to Russ yesterday. It was the fact that, okay, what's the difference? The NBA hasn't had a major outbreak so far, and what's the difference between them and the NHL? Okay, on the benches, they're all standing with masks, and they're further apart. In the NHL, they're shoulder to shoulder, and they're encased in glass. Now they've taken away the glass, so now there can be more airflow. They're talking about air filters with a
Wait. All right, so can I mention something here quickly? So when they talked about the air filters, I got a little twinge because it was funny, not because they're right. They should have an air filter. It will help the air quality. They're using the data from Consumers Reports, and I said, are they getting this from my mother-in-law who gets me a subscription every year? But they are scientists there. But I just think it's funny now that the NHL is using Consumer Reports in their COVID.
Oh. By the way, HEPA filters have been proven to do nothing to this virus.
Well, I mean, they're going with
HEPA filters are completely. I mean, that's the case.
50%. That's what they're saying.
Really, I've heard nothing. I've heard the proof. That's crazy. This
according to the statement, it says, quote, in order to improve indoor air quality and mitigate airborne viral transmission. That's what they said.
Okay, but what happened to converting these arenas with the special air ducts and everything else? Do we think that really happened? I'm not sure it did.
No.
I don't think it happened either.
Of course not. They didn't do that in malls, but they're opening up malls. They're opening up shopping.
No, but we heard that in sports they were going to invest in that.
Yes,
we all heard that.
Yeah, I think that we should all wear these. I'm going to say that this is now available for $300. And if we could all wear these all the time, unless of course you sneeze, which would be a problem.
Yeah.
You'd be good. Okay, to go on Mars too.
Or like you forget you're eating. You have someone you're eating an ice cream cone. That's endless comedy abilities here. What happens if you have to scratch your nose or something? Yeah.
Does it have Bluetooth?
So it does have Bluetooth. It has it has Bluetooth inside. It has a screen. It's it's a Toronto-based company, and. So, yes, I'm 100% for this. I think this would be fantastic. I want to wear one of these all the time as it is.
I think that's what Freddie Anderson wears after games so he doesn't have to hear it.
I think this will naturally socially distance people because no one's going to want to sit anywhere near you. I think this will play into that, too, because there would be like that freak is just that guy's just freaking me out over there. We're really close to this. So that to me is the answer. There you have it.
But the other thing that's interesting now, since there won't be the glass there from the box, not for the box glass will be there, but for the bench, Now the referees are going to have to guess when someone puts the puck in the crowd,
Yeah.
would it have gone over the other glass? So now how are they going to know that by eyesight?
But how about my suggestion? Put a piece of tape from one edge to the
It's a good answer. It won't look good on TV though.
No, well, screw it. Please. I mean, do you think that cardboard cutouts of Andrew Cuomo
Well, it
look
depends who the
good?
people are, Mike. Some are photogenic.
Can we address the fact that Gritty was nude on national television?
No, that was stupid. That whole other than
I mean, it was worse than you thought, Russ. Because I got home and watched some of when you were still there. It was awful.
I mean, I got the artist dialogue part. I forget the famous artist name right now. That stuff is funny, but it went on way too long. That could have been done in one period.
Yeah, no, I really have issues with
somebody kill Gritty.
No, that was a tough one. That was
a tough one, man. That's crazy.
And the funny thing is, there's all this stuff happening, and I don't know what they're putting on TV or not, because Gritty's doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we don't know what they put on TV
during the breaks when they're on commercials and stuff like this. For who? Like we're still confused.
Maybe they're gonna have like a bonus CD at the end of the year with Gritty's greatest hits. I don't know.
Or is this just what he has to do to make it to get paid? I guess maybe it's just like funny. Like it's really just.
They might have a Gritty special at some point.
Just to because you mentioned in the chat, Sabres head coach Ralph Kruger tested positive for COVID, so he's along and. The Sabres had no positives up until the weekend series against the Devils. Now the Devils have 17 on the COVID protocol list and 4 Sabres.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. We all feel like something went wrong there. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a matter of time before, at least we know the Sabres aren't going to miss any more games because there's not going to be any more.
And Chuck Fletcher had COVID. Sam Carchidi had the information and actually didn't tell anybody because Chuck asked him not to. Now that he's revealed it, so he had it too, and he was sequestered in a hotel for a week.
Wow, yeah, it's going around. And I think that there's the other. That's it. So there were 2 things the NHL's considering. The other contingency is bubbling these teams for the last 15 games of the season.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now.
The players won't do it.
The players will shut down the season before they agree.
Yeah,
it won't happen. And now Brian Burke today on Hockey Central said. Third, conference finals and finals, maybe the bubble because that'll be 2 to 3. That'll be 3 weeks to a month.
I don't know if you'll need it then. I mean, I think
maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think you'll need it then.
But
so then
I hope you won't need it.
The Florida Panthers are leading the NHL in attendance. By the way, just so for all the people who pick on the Florida Panthers not being able to sell seats, they're putting 4,000 fans a game in there.
5. I heard 5.
4 really. It's
4. Okay.
But
that's their max.
The Preds are putting in 1,000 a game. So honestly, the Florida Panthers number 1 in the NHL in attendance. Just don't pick on them anymore. They're doing a good job down there. That's for sure.
Good for them.
All right, that's all the time we have. I want to thank Dave Cook again.
Yes, thanks, Dave. That was awesome.
Stuff all over the place, but mainly he's a really excellent jazz musician too. Has some really good stuff out there if you're into that kind of jazz. I mean, these guys played with Billie Holiday, for crying out loud. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.